It is just after 5 p.m. here on the East Coast. We're on the air with a special report as Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist, has died after being shot during an event at Utah Valley University. 31 years old. He was the CEO and co-founder of Turning Point USA, known for mobilizing young Republican voters. Kirk was shot in the neck earlier this afternoon. The suspect is still at large. Police say a search is underway. Utah Valley University police say they are going building to building right now to try to evacuate people who are still there. President Trump posted about Kirk on Truth Social. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Those words from President Trump. Let's go now to our CBS News national security contributor, Samantha Vinograd. And Sam, the talk about the security detail, he had some people around him, but no metal detectors, nothing like that. That's something that's most certainly going to be looked at going forward.
Well, Maurice, this is just a devastating development, and certainly there will be an after action of what security protocols could have been in place to try to prevent this horrific incident. But right now, there's certainly a heavy focus on how to apprehend whomever was responsible for this terrible incident. We don't yet know if law enforcement authorities have actually identified a suspect, if they've been able to ascertain whom in the crowd was responsible for shooting Charlie Kirk. So the first order of business is certainly to identify a suspect. They can do that through eyewitness accounts, through social media, through videos from the scene, and other uses of advanced technology. Once they do identify who was responsible for this incident, they will certainly be working to locate the individuals through warrants at the individual's property, reviewing their social media, talking to friends and family, and then, if necessary, employing a range of federal, state, and local law enforcement assets to try to track the individual if that individual is at large. What we don't yet know is whether there still is an ongoing threat to the public. If a suspect has not been identified and has not been apprehended, Maurice, that may in fact be the case.
Sam, anything from the video we have seen, anything tell you or give you any clue as to the distance of the shooter? Because initially the local authorities there thought they had him, or whoever it was, from some 200 feet away, I believe it was. I looked at it, untrained eye, I thought it was maybe from close range. What do you make of it?
I think it's a little hard to tell. It certainly doesn't look like the individual was in the first few rows in the crowd that you're seeing on your monitor right now. And various witnesses have indicated that it sounded like it was more of a rifle rather than a pistol. But I would imagine that law enforcement, federal, state, and local, again, the FBI and other parts of the federal government are likely involved at this point, are likely reviewing video from the event itself and trying to ascertain where the shot came from. There's advanced technology that they can use to trace the path of the bullet that fatally struck Mr. Kirk, and then from there to try to capture footage to identify the suspect.
Okay, Sam Vinograd, thank you for that. Our senior White House and political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe, joins us now. Reaction is pouring in from across the spectrum, Ed.
It is, Maurice, and importantly, it's pouring in from across both political parties. Obviously, the president, the vice president, others in the Trump administration, from the moment the reports first surfaced, asking for prayers and now recalling their late friend and fellow conservative activist and leader. But we've also notably seen Democrats. We heard Chris Van Cleve there mention the governor of Arizona, Katie Hobbs. California Governor Gavin Newsom was one of the first notable Democrats to weigh in on this, saying that the attack on Charlie Kirk is disgusting, vile, and reprehensible in the United States of America. We must reject political violence in every form. And what's notable about Newsom weighing in is the fact that earlier this year, as he launched his own podcast, the governor invited Kirk on to discuss essentially how Kirk had successfully done it for years for Republicans, and what it was perhaps the Democrats could learn in their engagement digitally and in events like this to reach younger voters. As anyone may recall from last year, the big takeaway was that the Republican Party, the Trump campaign, quite effectively engaged and galvanized younger, more digitally focused voters to their side. And the Democratic Party ever since has been trying to sort out how to do it. Well, Kirk was one of those that had been doing it for several years, and Newsom, in that case, at least wanted to get to know him. And they had a rather meaty and respectful dialogue about their differences, which is what Kirk was trying to do today here in Utah. We also heard from the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Political violence is never acceptable. My thoughts and prayers are with Charlie Kirk and his family. And then Gabby Giffords, of course, the congresswoman who survived an assassination attempt, had said she was horrified, and political disagreements are always allowed, but we must never allow America to become a country that confronts those disagreements with violence. There was a short time ago, Maurice, a moment of silence held on the floor of the House of Representatives. Speaker Johnson asked colleagues to rise and do so. Sounds like there may have been some in the chamber, unclear who and where, who tried to interrupt that silence. I don't know if we can play this.
A moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
So that was earlier in the House chamber. Speaker Johnson very quickly ran there to draw attention to it and have members of both parties stand there, at least momentarily, in honor of Kirk. This was before word officially came that he had died. So it shows you very quickly how quickly he galvanized people on both sides of the aisle to speak out, not only to denounce the violence, but to acknowledge the influence that Charlie Kirk had.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you so much. Let's go to Justice correspondent Scott McFarland now. Scott, first we were told they have a suspect, and now we're told they had the wrong guy.
Yeah, we've been blanketing our FBI contacts with questions about this over the last few minutes because there is a lack of clarity over what is the status of any manhunt for whoever pulled the trigger today. The Utah Valley University statement issued mid-afternoon was that a suspect was in custody. About 20 minutes later, they walked that back. And the FBI, we know, is on the ground at the site of this shooting. They've given no updates on whether they are pursuing somebody, have somebody, or if somebody is even alive who's involved with this shooting. The Utah Valley University police are helping to respond to this, the local police. And we know, according to folks at the university who've spoken with CBS News, they're going door to door now on campus to help evacuate anybody who's there. They want everybody off this campus. And if you are doing a door-to-door evacuation, if you are offering to come get people and walk them off the campus, that's indicative of a kinetic threat, of something that is not fully settled at this point. But we're going to keep tapping into FBI sources here to get some a sense of what's going on. But I'll tell you, it is unorthodox now. We are 2 hours and about 20 minutes since this shooting, and we do not have an update from law enforcement if they have somebody either in their sights or in handcuffs.
Door to door, Scott, that suggests a dicey situation there at Utah Valley University. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Right now, former Republican National Committee Chair Michael Whatley joins us. Mr. Whatley, you knew Charlie Kirk. Our condolences for sure. What can you tell us about him, and what are your thoughts right now?
Well, my thoughts are with his family, and obviously, want to offer our prayers for me and Suzanne both. Charlie was a friend. Charlie was a father. Charlie was a husband. Charlie, every time that I met him, he had a very intense smile on his face. He was a happy warrior. And he's a guy who fought for what he believed in. And he believed in America, and he believed in his family. And I think this is going to leave a big hole in America, really. That when we see this kind of a senseless tragedy, we cannot allow this to take place in America anymore. We really need to do everything we can to kind of prevent these political fights from escalating to violence like this.
Can we talk about that a little bit, sir? Because, everybody's wondering now, what happened? How do we get to this point where now this is almost... I don't want to say not surprising, but not expected, but people are still sort of reacting like I knew something like this would happen. How did we get here?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely tragic, is what it is. You know, I think that when we think about, you know, President Trump being shot earlier this summer, 2 different attempts on his life, you know, and it's really easy, you know, in the moment to say it's the other side. But the fact is that there is no place in America for this type of political violence whatsoever. The fact is that a husband and a father has been taken from us way too early in his life.
A little more about what type of father and husband and man Charlie Kirk was. Hard to believe we're talking about him in the past tense right now, but, you know, someone who was a provocateur, who did it with a certain amount of joy, right?
Well, look, I think that he approached every day with a certain amount of joy, and it was great to be able to work with him, to do events with him, to spend time with him. You know, he was a very intense, very loyal person. He was very demanding, but in a good way. And I think that you know, he brought a passion to politics. He brought a passion to what he did with Turning Point. I think that's unbelievably commendable. And like I said, it will be a big hole in certainly my world and everybody else's world that had a chance to know Charlie.
Okay, thank you so much, former RNC Chair Michael Whatley. We appreciate your remembrances there. Reaction coming in from Governor Wes Moore, Democrat of Maryland. I condemn in strongest possible terms the attack. You know, you see this kind of reaction from Republicans as well. Tom Tillis, a senator, praying for Charlie Kirk. Political violence has no place in our society. So I bring in our chief Washington analyst, Robert Costa. You're hearing the condemnations far and wide, yet here we are once again, Bob.
Here we are once again. The specter of violence continuing to hover over the United States and our political culture. You see leaders in both parties expressing horror at what is unfolding here on a college campus today, a time when so many students are going back to school, starting their classes in September. It's the carnage of violence at a political leader. And this country has seen it many times before. You think about President Lincoln. You think about the shots fired on President Reagan. Of course, President Kennedy being gunned down in 1963, and other political figures have been shot. You think about George Wallace running for president being shot. He survived. Charlie Kirk, at such a young age, being gunned down, assassinated at a political event. This is something that is bracing for so many of the people we cover. Yes, there is a political debate that's often very testy in this country, but so often behind the scenes, most people I cover see the dignity in the other person across the way. Violence is not part of the American system. It's something that has scarred America's history, but it's not part of how we have dialogue. And Charlie Kirk, whether you are a defender of his, an advocate, an ally, a friend, or a critic, he is someone who was in the arena. And so many people, whether they're activists like Charlie Kirk, who are media figures, or they're political figures and leaders who are in elected office, they believe that by going in the arena, they may be bruised ideologically, they may be bruised when it comes to their rhetoric, but they won't necessarily have to face this sort of violence. But we've seen the attempted assassination of lawmakers like Steve Scalise within the past decade or so. Of course, President Trump facing his own assassination attempts. Gabby Giffords, the former member of Congress. Both parties have dealt with this, and now today, a real rising star dead at such a young age.
Yeah, for sure, Bob. And what it means for our politics going forward, that will be chewed over as we move forward here. To recap for you, the conservative activist Charlie Kirk has died after being shot in the neck during an event at Utah Valley University. A search for the suspect is underway, and a motive is still unknown. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Maurice DuBois.